Hello, today I'm going to talk about A Silent Voice Volume 2. The video for Volume 1 will be in the comments below. Volume 1 focused on Shoya, but Volume 2 focused on Tomohiro, who is Shoko's sister. And it's really interesting to see the impact of Shoko's experiences on Tomohiro. So I'll give you a bit of a rundown of the plot of this volume, and then we'll look at some of the themes and how it affects Tomohiro. To start, we see Shoko and Shoya meeting again for the first time as teenagers. And we see Shoko as she realises that Shoya has changed, but she's not quite sure what it means. I think it's really interesting because we see Shoko and see her actions, and that's how we get to know her character. Whereas with Shoya, we get to hear his voice. Where in the last story we saw Shoya planning to jump from the bridge, we now see Shoko feeding the fish from the bridge. We see this gentle girl who so long ago had asked Shoya to be friends, and we see it all again through his eyes. And this is the point where Shoya chooses to live and chooses to continue, and we're going to see the ramifications from that. I think one of the powers of this story is that it is not about being a bully, it is about making amends for the damage you've done as a bully, which I think is a very different story than a lot of the stories of bullying that we read. We see Shoya starting to take accountability for what he did and to, I guess, kind of find he's on a journey to make things right, also realising that maybe it isn't as easy as it first appears. We see Shoya's pain and we see him starting to find ways to make things better. So the journey to making things right is not going to be smooth, and the first thing that Shoya does is try to step in and be helpful by lending out his bike to someone who requests it, and it all goes wrong because the bike is then stolen. But we really see Shoya trying to make sense of his misfortune and recognise that maybe there is something good that's come out of here. He gets given a voucher for bread, which he realises he can go and buy bread to feed to the fish with Shoko. But actually, as readers, we can see that probably the thing that comes out of this misfortune is actually the lesson that Shoya gets about what friendship is, in that he makes friends with the boy whose bike he'd saved. And we start to see that Shoya is making sense of his own existence and the impact that his existence or that his suicide would have, and choosing to stay alive. Shoya's decision that that the way he's going to make amends is through making things right for Shoko comes with a big warning off a small boy who says that he's Shoko's boyfriend and who threatens Shoya. Shoya then gets accused of having bragged about his bridge jumping and his dangerous behaviour online. He says, his response is actually quite passive. It's like, I don't remember any of this. We start to see Yuzuru's story, how as the younger sister, she's been the one standing up and being angry and strong on her sister's behalf. We start to see Shoko through the lens of Yuzuru, literally through her camera lens, but also figuratively seeing her relationship with her sister. But we also see that Yuzuru has been doing things for Shoko, but on behalf of Shoko without including her, and we start to see Shoko fighting back. Yuzuru runs away from home and is found by Shoya, and they start to gain a new understanding of each other. But when Mrs. Nishima comes to the door, it's not Yuzuru she's looking for. She's looking for Shoko, and there's a real sort of jarring sense of that she's not concerned about her younger daughter, she's concerned about her older daughter, because her older daughter is perceived as being more vulnerable. But we're seeing this real vulnerability in Yuzuru through the story. And yeah, I just found my heart really going out to her. And Yuzuru and Shoya rush out into the night looking for Shoko, because Yuzuru realises that Shoko has gone looking for her, and there's this sort of jarring sense of the tables being turned. And there's a really nice little sense as the two sisters are reunited that Shoya recognises what Yuzuru has been doing. I think in Yuzuru, Shoya sees something of what he wants to be in protecting Shoko, but he's an unreliable narrator. But we know that this is not the right thing. And this is where I think we really get the theme of the whole book so far, that Shoko's voice is not being listened to. People are doing things to her and for her, and they're not listening to her or asking her what she wants. And the fact that Shoko says sorry at this point, I think really tells us something about her internal story, but we're still not being told her story. This is Yuzuru's story of taking responsibility and trying to make things right for her sister. And in the flashback, we really see this for how it's affected her as a very young child, defending her sister. But also that's led her to be confused by her sister. She says, why don't you get angry? I think this is really interesting. And we see how Yuzuru has been forced to take on additional responsibilities, becoming her sister's communicator. It's very clear that Yuzuru signs and communicates with Shoko much better than her mum does. And her mum is constantly taking the power away from both girls. We see Shoko being treated as much younger than she is, and Yuzuru being treated as much older than she is, and she's neglected and feels that her absence isn't even noticed. I think this is quite a common experience where one sibling has very high need, that the other sibling can often feel that their needs are not being met, and that all the attention is on the child who has the greater need. To respect her sister as an adult and autonomous, Yuzuru has to find a new way to relate to her sister. And I think it's really interesting that it's Yuzuru's voice that we hear, noticing that Shoko is smiling in a different way and that there's a change coming in her. So within this story, we see the family, we see Yuzuru's experience of bullying, but we're still not getting Shoko's voice. And then we get just this little voice where Shoko says sorry, without defining what she feels sorry for, and without a lot of explanation. And the illustrations of the sign, I think, are really powerful. I find it particularly interesting because my mind goes, oh, that's Japanese sign language. That's very different. But I think when Shoko actually is allowed to speak, it's so simple and so powerful. And I want to hear more from her. And it's Shoko who tells us that the story is not over. She wants to see Shoya again. She wants to continue the story. So I'm really excited about volume 3 as we go with Shoko and Shoya to find out more about what has happened since the bullying that led to Shoko leaving the school. Now, if you want to be notified of when that is up, please subscribe and ring the bell, and then you'll see when it's coming up. I'm really looking forward to sharing the next part with you. Thanks ever so much for listening. I'll see you soon. Bye.